I, like a lot of you, last night, as I was trying to get myself coordinated, watching the Warriors at the Nets. Right? I mean, first half, tight. It looked like the Nets didn't want to play LaMarcus Aldridge because they were afraid of this small lineup that the Warriors have been throwing out there against teams. And then the Warriors absolutely put it on them. And the weird thing in that third quarter, too, is that Curry and Wiggins both had 4 fouls. So I thought there was a chance that we were going to see some sort of run there from the Nets. And that was not the case whatsoever. And, this goes back to any of you that listen to me, I don't know, 11, 12, 13 years ago when I started doing podcasts at ESPN for the NBA Today deal. And I used to do Tales from the Couch back then, where I would watch part of whatever it was. I think it would Tuesday night because it wasn't as stacked, but I would try to watch like all 7 games or something like that, or at least a good chunk of them, and then tell you everything I did. And it was absurd how much time I put into that. But the reason that I bring that up is that what was always one of the early rules on that podcast? It's like the best teams smash you in the third quarters. And right now, that's what the Warriors have been doing. Kirk Goldsberry, who we're big fans of, the net rating by quarter right now for Golden State going into last night is plus 31.7. That's so dumb. It's such a dumb number. It doesn't make any sense. And so Golden State, I think 28, up 28. It could have gotten worse. The Nets shut everything down. And by the way, when you say you don't like the Nets and you want to dump on them and be like, oh, they waved the white flag. Like, come on. It doesn't mean anything. They probably weren't coming back. Although Stan Van Gundy, I thought, made a good point, which also is one of the reasons why it feels like so many teams get sick of him. But he was like, I really was late to let in the bench. He goes, I wanted to make sure we were definitely going to lose this game. And he's like, I know the end of the bench didn't really like me that much. I'm like, I'm not sure a ton of starters loved you either. But Steve Nash is just, I think, as a player who's still a little closer to it as a former player, is like, we just don't have it tonight. And that's what the Warriors are doing to teams. So let's run through some of the numbers. They're 12-2. They've got the best point differential by a pretty good chunk in the NBA. They're the number 1 defensive team by 2 points compared to the second place defensive team. The other good defensive teams right now in the league, the Clippers, Denver, which when, I almost thought the other night, because I was watching one of the Nuggets games and Aaron Gordon was invisible again offensively. And I go, Aaron Gordon's the guy that once you get him in your house, you're like, oh, everybody wanted this guy really badly, and then you immediately give him an extension. Now, defensively, I'll give it to him because he can switch. Cerruti's laughing in the background, so I have to just let you say something. Well, are you laughing at? But, there's 2 types of people in the world, those that have watched Aaron Gordon a bunch and those that haven't. And there's one group that likes him a lot better than the other one.
Yeah, I mean, I spent years talking myself into what Aaron Gordon could be, and the reality is he's just never going to be what you think or what you want him to be. He's still a valuable player, but when he's running any sort of offense, he's just not that dude, and that's all right.
Yeah, that's it. He doesn't dramatically change who you're going to be offensively, which is the craziest thing because Denver with Jokic, it's kind of the centerpiece of this whole thing. And seeing him get exposed in certain matchups, which would happen, I think, to Chicago too. But I mean, we're talking about the top 5 defensive teams in the NBA. It's Golden State, it's the Clippers, it's Denver, it's Washington, and it's Chicago. The Washington thing is fascinating because there's other people who argue that like Montrez is the reason why Doc Rivers doesn't have a job anymore, because in certain matchups you can't have him defensively, even though with his energy and his effort and his rebounding and some of the stuff he does, like you watch Montrez some nights, you're like, everybody would want this guy on the team. I still think most teams would, but there's going to be matchups where it doesn't really work out. The same thing from Jokic, certainly the same thing for Vucevic with Chicago, but Chicago's backcourt is so good defensively, especially when you throw Caruso into the mix. These numbers all make a lot of sense, but what Golden State is doing, this is all about effort and mindset. This is a remarkable basketball team. I'm not telling you they're the best team, and we're going to get to that. I know the record says they're the best team, but what they are doing, just with the way they approach night in and night out those 48 minutes, this is, you don't see this. That's the story, is you don't see this in the NBA, a team playing like this. They're jumping passing lanes. They're switching with focus and communication. They are cutting. And I'm telling you, if you're a basketball coach of young kids, you need to just have them all sit and watch a Warriors game together and focus on one thing. Don't focus on the shots going in or Steph doing his deal or the Gary Payton second dunks or any of that stuff or Draymond. Focus strictly on, if you keep cutting, good things will happen. And it's just not cool to keep cutting all the time in the NBA. You're like, I'm cut. Why would I do that? Like, I don't want to do that. I'm awesome. I'm a max player. I fight over a screen all night. I don't want to do that. And that's the people that don't love the NBA that point out that stuff. Now, I'll tell you, like, I don't think every single defensive end is bringing it on all 70 snaps, and I have no problem with that. I've seen a few guys give away at bats, too. The NBA probably gets a little bit too much shit for some of the things that I don't love. But again, if that's who you are as a player and all the habit, like it's a perfect example with the Nets. Bembry and Mills fighting like crazy over screens. The other guys, nah, I'm not going to do it. So when 2 of the 5 out there are busting it, and I still think Durant's really good defensively when he needs to be. Harden has no interest other than that one post possession where then the announcer's is like, this guy defensively is much better than people realize. You're like, no, he isn't. Golden State is showing up like this college team that watched Hoosiers 3 times, 14 seed playing like a 3 or something. That's how Golden State goes into this. Because talent-wise, after Steph, and certainly Draymond's effort has been great this year, and his passing and all that kind of stuff. But if you look at this roster, this is not the kind of roster that should have the best record in the NBA. So the biggest thing of this is, now I've told you what the numbers are. Offensively as well, they're number 3. Number 1 is Utah. Number 2 is Philly, where that number is going to, I don't know when that's going to start regressing more and more. They've lost 5 straight. Their effort, they played 13 guys in the first half last night, and the game was actually close. I mean, they're bringing along Kuminga and trying to develop this lottery pick on top of a team that has the best record. Because here's the thing. Are they this good? If you're new to this podcast, I'm a bit of a Steph Curry fan. I'm a bit of a Warriors fan for the sense that I love seeing Steph do well. I'm not like, I don't have shirts at home and stuff. I think I have a Chris Mullin jersey from back in the day. But I don't think they're this good. Are you kidding? Like, think of the teams, and this is when if you're watching a talk show and you say, all right, so does this make the Warriors the favorite to win the title? Are they the favorites in the West? I mean, let's not forget about who Brooklyn could be. We can also remind ourselves of how terrible some of those defensive numbers were for Brooklyn last year, and it meant nothing. I'm not writing off Milwaukee anytime soon. Phoenix doesn't get any love for a team that won the West last year. I feel like they're completely under the radar. They started off bad. Have you watched them lately? They're good. And they've got a little bit more depth up front because I thought it was criminal they didn't have a backup to Ayton last year. It might have changed the finals. If they'd had one guy who played center for like a couple $1 million, they could give you 20 minutes. Hell, 15 minutes a night in the finals. Utah, we've talked about Utah. We know the record is going to be really good. I'm actually disappointed the record is what it is. Some of it's scheduling, that kind of stuff. Mitchell, I think, missed a game or 2. And in the LA part of this, I'm holding off on all of this until LeBron comes back because the Lakers right now are, I mean, if you hate the Lakers, then you're having a blast watching this team play because they're terrible. But I'm not ready to go without Klay. This team, the NBA teams like this don't win titles. Now, if you're going to tell me with Klay back and the uncertainty in the West, that it's a foregone conclusion, I would say that that's even a little aggressive, but you could counter and say, hey, you know what? 2015, 2016, we're not talking that many years ago, 5-6 years ago, this team pre-Durant was pretty good with Klay, with Steph, and with Draymond. Yes, younger. Harrison Barnes, a decent enough fourth outlet if you needed somebody to make a shot, which was a huge problem because they didn't have enough depth after you max out guys like Draymond, Klay, Steph, and Durant, which, again, you max those guys out and you don't worry about depth. But there were some other pieces that were somewhat capable. Sean Livingston, Iguodala. Yeah, Iguodala back. I just, as a guy that loves what he's seen from this organization over the last few years, I'm not going to go there and start picking this team as the undisputed champ because without Klay comes back as a different conversation. But without Klay, these are not the kinds of teams that win championships. And it also leads to like the Steph stuff because the guys did it on TNT where it's like, hey, can we say he's the best in the world? And Kenny Smith's like, I did this week. And Charles is like, no, you didn't. I don't know who to believe on this one. We update this constantly. Steph is, I think, without question, the best teammate you can have in the NBA over the last 20 years. The only thing that separates LeBron and Steph as best teammate is that Steph probably isn't trying to get you traded every year to make his team better. So tiebreaker goes to Steph on that one. But as the biggest Steph fan ever, I'll admit even I am a little surprised that they are this good because even though I like the role pieces after Draymond, and Draymond's kind of in that hybrid role star guy because I don't think he's a star somewhere else. We're talking about like another 8 role players who are all playing really intense, focused, fun, great basketball, whatever you want to do. But that is not the profile of a team where you should be on a TV show today saying they're going to win an NBA title, especially with the uncertainty of what Klay will look like when he comes back. If he comes back, then that's a different story. But this team right now, fun, but this is not a great basketball team.